Welcome to Freight Week STL 2024. I'm Mary Lamey, Executive Vice President of Multimodal Enterprises for Bi-State Development. In this session, we'll take a closer look at the latest trends in freight movement through the St. Louis region by all four modes of transportation, infrastructure investments being made here, and how the optionality in multimodal transportation benefits shippers. Our featured panelists include Rhonda Hamm-Niebruegge, the Executive Director, St. Louis Lambert International Airport, Brent Wood, President, Terminal Railroad Association of St. Louis, Brad Reinhardt, President, St. Louis, Marty Hettel, Vice President, Government Affairs, American Commercial Barge Line. Welcome, everyone. We'll start with asking each of you to introduce yourself and your organization. Rhonda, let's begin with you. Tell us about your role with St. Louis Lambert International Airport.
Well, I'm the Executive Director for St. Louis Lambert International. I've been here for the past 15 years. So my role is kind of all-inclusive. As the Executive Director, I have overall responsibility for the operation, meeting all the FAA federal guidelines, for the strategic planning and the future outlook of our airport, as well as all of the community engagement.
Brent, now it's your turn to introduce yourself and your role at Terminal Railroad Association of St. Louis.
Yeah, thank you. I've been with Terminal for approximately 8 years. I came in as a CFO with a large construction project, and about 3 years ago was named president. I am responsible for operations, human resources, engagement, community involvement, and all aspects of the company.
Okay, Brad, you wear a couple of different hats that are relevant for today's discussion. Tell us about those.
Thanks, Mary. Yes, my name is Brad Reinhardt with Wells St. Louis. I am the co-owner of Wells St. Louis. We are an asset-based logistics company. We're an agent for well companies out of Green Bay. We have over 600 trucks and 9 warehouses scattered across the United States. Today, I'm representing the Transportation Club of St. Louis. We were formed in 1907. Our membership and companies consist of pretty much all aspects of the supply chain. So shippers, carriers, vendors, anybody that touches the supply chain are members. Membership is free. And if you're not from St. Louis and you're wondering if your city has a transportation or logistics club, you can check out ltna.org. LTNA is the national organization for all the transportation clubs in the US and Canada.
Marty, give us a little background on yourself and American Commercial Barge Line.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this panel today, Mary. I started my career in the inland waterways as a deckhand 44 years ago in Reserve, Louisiana. The inland waterway industry has brought me to Pekin, Illinois, then to Lamont, Illinois, then to Paducah, Kentucky, and now in St. Louis since 1996. I've progressed to my current position as Vice President of Government Affairs at American Commercial Barge Lines. ACBL has been in operation for over 100 years. Today, ACBL moves approximately 60 to 62 million tons of cargo annually with our fleet of 3,500 barges that we own and approximately 1,000 third-party barges. And we move this tonnage with about 150 towboats and 2,000 teammates. And St. Louis Harbor is intricate to ACBL being able to move the tonnage as it serves not only a destination and an origination for our freight customers, but it also serves as an interchange point for freight destined to the Illinois, Missouri, and upper Mississippi rivers. Again, glad to be here with you and thanks for the invite.
Thank you all for joining us. Now let's get started by discussing growth and areas of opportunity you are seeing across our transportation network. Brent, we'll start with you. All 6 Class 1 railroads converge in the St. Louis region, which is one of the largest rail hubs in the nation. What can you tell us about the volume of freight moving through the region via rail and the investments recently made to further enhance rail freight movement through the bi-state area?
So thank you, Mary, for that question. So we've seen our business grow in the past decade, spiking during COVID, and those higher volumes have been maintained since that time. When we look at the numbers, it's not just intermediate traffic, and intermediate traffic being handoffs between the Class 1 railroads, but it's also our organic growth in the area. We've been developing properties on our facilities, which have also grown volume. We have about 70 of our own customers here locally and plenty of room for growth. So we do the last mile, first mile deliveries on those as well. So we have seen a large increase in traffic in all aspects of our business, including storage. We do sit storage as well. Facilitating that are the two Mississippi River bridge crossings that we have, the MacArthur Bridge to the north, to the south, I'm sorry, and the Merchants Bridge to the north. Those two bridges together are the third largest crossing of the Mississippi River in the country. And by volume, the freight here in St. Louis on the rail has plenty of room for growth, but it is one of the largest hubs in the country. You asked the question, some of the infrastructure spending that we've done. I would like to highlight the Merchants Bridge. It was to the point where a double track bridge could only be used sparingly in that fashion, and it was nearing its useful life. So we just undertook a $200 million rehabilitation of that bridge, completed in 2023. Such that the rail traffic is now, the velocity has increased dramatically, and we have plenty more capacity. Those bridges act as a backup for each other as well. All 6 of the railroads can hit the Merchants Bridge. 2 of them can hit the MacArthur Bridge, but we can use them as backups so that we can limit the downtime in the St. Louis Gateway. The other areas that we've spent a lot of time and money on, and I mentioned that we maintain our infrastructure to a Class 1 standard, including we have positive train control, so we interchange with the Class 1s. But we have spent a lot of money on our intermodal yard in Madison, Illinois. We currently perform about 330,000 cars per year on the interchange. We are very good at interchange in unit trains as well. We can store trains and cars, as well as our manifest business, where in a manifest being less than a unit train, 5 cars, 10 cars, so we can be that last mile delivery to even small customers.
So Brad, with easy access to 4 major interstates and our I-270, I-255 interstate loop, shippers move a lot of freight by truck into and out of this region. What are some of the trends you're seeing, both big picture and first and last mile?
Probably the biggest effect that the trucking industry has seen maybe ever is the Amazon or e-commerce effect that's going on pre-pandemic and now post. And a lot of it actually has been very negative on the truckload side of our industry. But thankfully, it's been very positive for St. Louis. St. Louis has become a major distribution hub for the nation. Back in the day, most manufacturers probably had 2 manufacturing or distribution facilities in the United States, usually one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. Now they realize they have to be closer to all their customers, so they have multiple distribution facilities. And since you can reach, a little over 50% of the population in one driving day from St. Louis, St. Louis has become a, favorite spot for a lot of these shippers and manufacturers alike. You can reach the East Coast in 2 days from St. Louis, the West Coast in about 3. So since the cost of transportation, and especially last mile, is almost everything in our transportation industry right now, St. Louis is really poised to take advantage of both.
Rhonda, air cargo is another important option available here in the St. Louis region, and St. Louis Lambert International Airport is the region's primary cargo airport. Tell us what sort of volumes move through STL.
We too have seen increases, which has been nice. So last year, if we look at total cargo, that was about 160 million pounds. Now that's inclusive of our dedicated freighters such as UPS, FedEx, Amazon, DHL. It also includes the belly cargo. So as we think about belly cargo, the larger aircraft, especially like Southwest, that's running all of the 737s and mostly 787s or the Maxes. They have quite a bit of belly space. So that number also is included there. And then we also have a USDA port of embarkation, which we're able to ship live animals across the country. So when I think about that 160 million pounds, that's inclusive of all modes of our cargo. And that's an important piece because we can have dedicated freighters, we have the belly cargo, and then of course we've got the dedicated live animal shipments. The other piece was that we saw significant growth during the COVID years. So if we think back to 2015, we were doing about 120 million. We doubled that in 2022, which was kind of the peak year for that COVID movement, a product needing to get across the country to distribution centers, and air cargo was a critical piece of that. So we hit 250 million pounds during 2022. We saw that drop off a little bit after that peak year. We hit about 196 million in 23, and then of course, like I said, 160 million in a most recent. So we think that there's continued opportunity for growth here. We're working with all of our partners to become a premier destination with our infrastructure that we have in our runway system. One of the things we've really tried to set ourselves apart is this live animal shipment. We're seeing a lot of livestock purchased from the US into Asian countries, into South American countries, and it's all going for breeder stock. And the opportunity to be able to ship that is limited to a number of airports in the country, and we're one of those airports. So those are typically dedicated freighter operations, and we're a prime spot for that dedicated freighter operation. So we're seeing a nice increase there as well. So we'll continue to hope that our partnerships grow and that we remain a critical and growing piece of the overall infrastructure of multimodal.
Marty, the latest data from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers shows the St. Louis region's inland port system is a leader in moving inbound and outbound agricultural products while also handling large volumes of other diverse products. Can you tell us about the volumes and types of cargo moving through the St. Louis region?
Yes, certainly, Mary. And I'm going to quote the statistics from the Corps' Institute for Water Resources. Their most recent data states there are 67 different commodities that are destined to originate from this area. The most recent tonnage figures they have state the inbound tonnage is approximately 7.1 million tons, with fertilizer being the leading tonnage of inbound freight at 2.5 million tons. Of course, the outbound tonnage at approximately 39.3 million tons is basically led by grain, which is approximately 15 million tons. When you look at both inbound and outbound tonnage, this is about 46.4 million tons that our barge industry transports into and out of the area. Add to the inbound and outbound tonnage that are destined here, there's also 59 million tons that have transited through this area destined to and or originated from the Illinois, Missouri, and upper Mississippi River. This equates to approximately 105 million tons that transit this area. And remember, our inland waterway system moves approximately 600 million tons annually. So right at about 17.5 to 18% of all tonnage shipped on the inland waterways transits through this region.
Okay, Brent, back to you. We understand you have some additional investments planned in southwestern Illinois and plans to rehabilitate another Mississippi River rail bridge. Tell us about those projects and the benefits they will deliver.
So Mary, I wanted to follow up on the Merchants Bridge as well from before. That bridge is fully operational, and we are reaping the benefits of the velocity through the system, and we are excited about that. But we do have the MacArthur Bridge, as you mentioned, that needs a large project. We spent about $15 million on a replacement of a truss on the west approach of that MacArthur Bridge last year. And we are in the final engineering stages, and we'll go out for bid on a approximately $60 million project to rehabilitate and add life to that bridge. It's a 1912 structure that we need to get more life out of. So we will be embarking on that project. Again, no interruption to traffic, just similar to the Merchants Bridge. Trains will keep flowing while we're completing those projects. Besides the Merchants Bridge, we also are adding a third main south of our yard to help increase velocity. And that is a big deal for the area and for us. It will give us the ability to pass trains through our yard off the Merchants Bridge at the same time that we're yarding trains for interchange and have traffic flowing south. So it will not only increase velocity, but it will dramatically decrease crossing blockages to the south. So we're really excited about that project. We have other development property that we're considering for the right project in the area of intermodal and other areas, but those are the large projects that we have in the works.
Brad, can you tell us how important historic funding for Interstate 70 and continuing investment on Interstate 270 is to the trucking industry?
Yeah, both projects have been a huge win for the St. Louis trucking industry. Anyone who's driven across state on Highway 70 knows how congested and dangerous that fine highway can be. So adding new ramps, new bridges, getting a third lane going across the state will be huge for not only cars, but also especially trucking companies. Because in the trucking industry, time is money. So a few years ago, the Department of Transportation instituted ELDs on all the trucks. And ELDs are basically those computers in the truck's engine that count the driver's hour of service. So when the driver starts his truck that day, the clock of 10 hours starts with him. So if the driver sits at a dock too long, or especially sits in traffic way too long behind an accident, or just can't get through a city because of all the traffic it has, that is money they're not earning because it's just eating up that clock. And so thankfully, with St. Louis not having that much congestion and no tolls, it makes it much more cost effective to have your trucking company in the St. Louis region. Also, one thing both projects have done is, to me, it's freed up a lot of great space for trucking companies to have terminals and build warehousing and stuff like that, because a lot of great space has opened up alongside 270 and then all the projected stuff alongside the new 70.
Rhonda, we've all heard about the exciting plans for the new consolidated single terminal at STL, but we understand you have other planned investment projects that would more directly enhance the cargo operations there. Tell us about those.
We do. Well, we are just finalizing the reconstruction of our longest runway. That should be open in June or July. So it's a totally reconstructed runway, which we have an incredible runway system, which is great for the cargo carriers. Like Brad, we don't have the congestion here, so that's a really nice feature. But in addition to that, we have focused really on trying to grow this livestock animal piece. So in partnership with the state grant that we got, we're spending about $2.5 million to enhance our USDA facility that we have. We're putting new flooring in that. We've got a conference center in there so that we can host luncheons. We can host opportunities to bring people in, show them the facilities. The restrooms are getting renovated, and we're getting some additional heating and cooling additions to that. So we're really excited about that. We anticipate that that's also going to be finished here in the next 2 months. So looking at those types of enhancements, we've also identified 300 acres of land that we are ready to go out in the very near future for an RFP on. While it's not connected to the airport, it is airport-owned property, but it's not connected to the runway system. But we're looking at trying to find a developer partnership there that would bring more logistics, more warehousing into our area, and certainly around the airport. We believe that cargo is a critical piece of being in the Midwest because of our location. So anything we can do to ensure that our runway's at its best capacity, that our facilities are at their best, and the potential growth for some of the land opportunities that we have are all the things we're embarking on to make sure that the future looks bright for cargo.
Marty, what can you tell us about the interconnectivity among the transportation modes in our region and how investment in other parts of our freight network may benefit ACBL's operations as well as the operations of other terminals?
Well, the United States is certainly a multimodal transportation system. Whether it's rail unit trains bringing Powder River Basin coal out of Wyoming to river ports to load onto barges and delivered to power plants, or unit trains bringing grain from Nebraska to load onto our barges for export. Barges can't get to the origins that rail can, and rail can't handle all the tonnage that barges can. Of course, you also have trucking that delivers a lot of freight to its final destination. On our inland waterways infrastructure, our inland waterways operators pay 29 cents a gallon tax on propulsion fuel. Total for our inland waterway industry on an annual basis is about $120 million that's contributed into the Inland Waterway Trust Fund to use for major rehab and new construction of lock and dam projects. The deposits into the Inland Waterway Trust Fund are supported by the General Treasury when funding major rehab and new construction on locks and dams. The cost of major rehab and new construction is split between the General Treasury and the Inland Waterway Trust Fund, with the General Treasury spending 65% of the cost and the Inland Waterway Trust Fund 35% of the cost. So as our industry contributes $120 million annually into the Inland Waterway Trust Fund, when you add that with the money supported by the General Treasury, it creates $340 million annually for upgrades to our lock and dam system. Now, this $340 million annually can be utilized to build the new 7 1,200-foot lock chambers that were authorized in the Navigation and Ecosystem Sustainability Program in the Water Resources Development Act of 2007. These 7 new 1,200-foot lock chambers are at Lock 25, Lock 24, Lock 22, Lock 21, and Lock 20 on the Upper Mississippi River, and LaGrange and Peoria locks on the Illinois River. These new 1,200-foot lock chambers, when completed, will increase our efficiency and safety as to compared to the 600-foot lock chambers we now have, where we have to double lock a 15-barge tow. Add to the efficiency and safety of having 1,200-foot chambers and still having the 600-foot chamber available creates redundancy so our barges can continue to move freight if one of the lock chambers are down for maintenance.
So now I'm going to ask each of you to give us a quick outlook for the market for the next 5 to 10 years. Let's begin with Rhonda.
I think the outlook is great. I mean, I think the demand, and I'm speaking about airport and air cargo, but I think the demand is there. I think there's always going to be an opportunity to have that fast. We're the fastest mode that's out there. So we saw that during COVID, but I think the world operates much different today, and the online shopping, the expectation that I can have things at my doorstep when I order it by the next day or even the same day is just the consumer demand that's out there. So I think the outlook over the next 5 years, especially for our region, being in the Midwest, is going to be extremely strong, because I think people are seeing the benefits of being able to house product here and get it to its network across the country in a much shorter time frame.
Thanks, Rhonda. Brent, please give us a quick outlook for the market for the next 5 to 10 years.
So thanks, Mary. So we have spent the last 5 to 7 years updating and upgrading our infrastructure and getting ready for this expansion that we think is coming to St. Louis. We are now turning our attention to our vacant land and properties that can be developed into intermodal, into other uses. And so we believe that this is a high growth area. We have everything someone would want. We have water, utilities, labor force, properties, and the ability to get it in and get it out quickly. So we're very optimistic on St. Louis.
Thanks, Brent. Brad, your turn. What does the market look like for the next 5 to 10 years?
The trucking market's all about supply and demand. So where there's a lot of trucks, the price for doing freight is very competitive if there's a lot of trucks in that market. 30 years ago, St. Louis lost, a couple car plants and a lot of manufacturing, and trucking left with it. Thankfully, about 10 years ago or so, St. Louis was very, very blessed to have, a lot of people from Bosnia and other European companies pick St. Louis to become their home. And those families thankfully started a lot of trucking companies that have grown very quickly and have put St. Louis really back on the map. And smart manufacturers know that you put your product as close to trucking companies and your customers as possible. And I think that'll be a huge benefit for St. Louis going forward.
Thanks, Brad. Marty, what is your quick outlook for the market for the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, as I stated in my opening remarks, St. Louis Harbor is certainly intricate to being able to move tonnage on the inland waterway system. And I'd like to discuss the Flood Control Act of 1944, which Congress authorized the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to maintain a 12-foot navigation channel between Cairo and Baton Rouge. During these last two severe drought conditions we experienced in 2022 and 2023, we were only able to load our barges to 9-foot draft due to the Army Corps of Engineers only maintaining a 9-foot channel, navigation channel from Cairo to Baton Rouge, even though they were authorized to maintain a 12-foot channel. Now, you may ask what a 12-foot channel Cairo South would do for St. Louis. The St. Louis Army Corps of Engineers St. Louis District states they can maintain a 9-foot navigation channel from St. Louis to Cairo when river stage in St. Louis reaches a minus 7.1 feet. During the drought conditions in 2022 and 2023, the St. Louis river stage reached a minus 0.1313 in 2022 and a minus 3.57 in 2023. If we had had a 12-foot channel below Cairo, we've been able to load our barges out of St. Louis to 11-foot of draft. So we were leaving behind 300 to 400 tons in each barge that departed St. Louis due to the fact we only had a 9-foot channel below Cairo. This resulted in every 25 barge tow that left Cairo loaded to 9 foot. That same amount of tonnage could have been loaded in only 20 barges, creating more capacity in the barge fleet. So in short, it took 20% more barges to move the same amount of tonnage if we had had the 12-foot channel Cairo South. So due to utilizing all this excess capacity at 9 foot out of St. Louis versus 11 foot, we saw record freight rates traded in St. Louis. The base tariff grain rate for grain at 100%, and these are all public knowledge numbers, is $3.99 a ton out of St. Louis. During the drought of 2022, we saw grain freight traded at 3,000% of tariff, which equates to $119.70 a ton. In the drought of 2023, with the grain export program less than 2022, we still saw grain freights traded at 2,000% out of St. Louis, which equates to $79.80 a ton. This definitely put our farmers and shippers at a competitive disadvantage in the world marketplace. Now, we have an opportunity to correct this in the 2024 Water Resources and Development Act for Congress to mandate the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers maintain the navigation channel between Cairo and Baton Rouge at 12 foot per the authorization in the Flood Control Act of 1944. And lastly, let me state, our inland water industry moves this tonnage in the most environmentally friendly and fuel-efficient manner of all modes of surface transportation within the United States. According to a study performed by the Texas Transportation Institute, our inland waterway system moves 1 ton of freight 675 miles on 1 gallon of fuel.
Very good. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. What an insightful discussion on how the St. Louis region's multimodal freight network continues to play a critical role in the movement of freight through mid-America. Investments being made in our region's freight network clearly are creating a tremendous opportunity for shippers looking for the most efficient options for getting their cargo into the Midwest or from the Midwest to coastal ports and on to other destinations. I'd also like to thank our sponsors. Their support makes it possible for us to continue to deliver the great content that is a hallmark of this annual conference. Our presenting sponsors are Ameren, Illinois Railroad Association, and Steadfast City. Our supporting sponsors are the Boeing Center, Contegra, Design 9, H&TB, the Hauser Group, and the Jerry Costello Group. Tomorrow is the final day of Freight Week STL 2024. We'll release the latest industrial market report for the St. Louis region and will highlight in-demand careers from the shop floor to the C-suite. We hope you can join us and encourage you to share links to any of our Freight Week content with others who may be interested.